have a score. If you don't have a score mentor at the moment, at the end of the webinar, give one of us your name in the chat, and we'll make sure you get you connected with a score counselor. The other, so SCORE works in two ways. One, we provide webinars like this on almost every topic of small business management. And the other is our free confidential one-on-one mentoring counseling that we do. And we're always looking for new clients. So again, if you have a mentor, perhaps you haven't seen them in a while, reach out to them or let us know if you can't remember who they are. Let us know in the chat and we'll reconnect you. Or again, we'll help you connect with a mentor if you don't have one. A little housekeeping. If you've got a question to ask, use the Zoom Q&A button, and these will get presented, forwarded along to us, and use the chat for any kind of comments that you may have. And as Teresa said, watch your email. You're going to get a recording of this webinar in a day or so. So Q&A for the questions, chat for comments. So right before we get started, Beverly, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? I'll do the same, and then we'll get going.
Okay. I attended both Babson and University of Pennsylvania Wharton School. At age 25, I started a company. We did insurance planning and benefits planning for the high-tech and biotech industry. We're primarily a sales organization. Grew quite large, and I sold the company when I was 50 and was able to very successfully retire and have been mentoring it with SCORE since that period of time.
Thanks, Beverly. And so I have been in small business in the New England area all my business career, my working career. I'm also retired, been retired for about 6 or 7 years, and been a SCORE counselor for about that long. My background has always been in sales and marketing. I started in a family substantial commercial printing company that was headquartered in Everett, Massachusetts, and also been involved with a software company and other manufacturing companies. I've been a sales consultant and a sales trainer, and enough about me. So let's get going. First, let's make sure we all understand the difference between sales and marketing. Marketing is what makes people aware of your product or your service. So marketing could be anything like any advertising that you do, any social media that you use, any blogs that you write, any branding, your website, webinars that you present, any speaking engagements, any direct mail perhaps that you might use. That's all marketing. And marketing sets the stage for the sale, but sales is what puts dollars in your pocket. Sales is what gets the order. You know what I meant to ask, let's take a time out right now. If you can put in the chat, what business are you in? What is the product or the service that you sell? And Teresa, maybe you can just in 1 or 2 words, you put the, if you're interested, just put those in the chat so we can get a sense of who's in the audience today. Teresa, maybe you could read out as they come in, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Software as a service, tax advisor, online retail, another software. Great. Manufacturer for mill equipment, hypnosis, permanent makeup and scar camouflage.
Okay.
We had a nice variety today.
Yeah. All right. We usually do. Thank you, folks. So, so some of you, I can see by the nature of your business, you are solopreneurs. Maybe all of you are. You are the company, and so that means that you're in sales. Your background may not be in sales, but if you own your own business, you're responsible for, you're wearing lots of hats, and you're responsible for the operations and the product and product development, et cetera, you're also responsible for selling that product or your service. And that makes you a salesperson. But that's sometimes that's a mental block that we have, because what's the perception that people have of salespeople? When I say a salesperson, what's a word or two? Put that in the chat if you would. What do you think of when I say salesperson?
Smarmy. That's a good word. Used car salesman.
Yeah.
Slimy.
Pushy, aggressive, assertive. Those are all words that have bad connotations, and it's a perception that people have, and it's it's something that anyone in sales has to overcome, because the selling process certainly doesn't have to be that way. And we're going to talk a little bit today about developing a process that works for you and works for your customer, your prospect, because done right, this process is going to benefit both you, the seller, and your buyers, and that's important, because we've got to learn people want to buy, but they don't want to be sold to. So no one wants to be a victim of a high pressure salesperson, and they don't have to be. But they're talking to you, your prospects talk to you because they've got some sort of a problem that they think you can solve, or they hope you can solve. And that's the connection that has to be made. But we also have to remember that you're not going to make that sale or make that good connection every time in every conversation. And so you have to learn how to handle rejection, because no one may be ready to buy today all the time. But that doesn't mean that they won't be ready next time that you speak with them, or when they are ready. The other important feature that you've got to keep in your mind at all times is to be confident. And you've got to be confident in two ways. You've got to believe in the benefits that your product or your service brings to your customer, that you can solve your customer's problems. And you also have to believe that you're going to make that sale, because it's really hard to win if you think you aren't going to make that sale when you're in a selling situation, when you're having a conversation with a prospect or a customer. Are you familiar with the phrase head trash? Head trash, and there are other phrases for this, but I like the one head trash, because head trash is what goes through our head when we think that we're going to fail, or that there's some negative block that's up ahead of us. And there's no basis in reality for that. We have no knowledge that because someone's sitting there with their arms crossed in front of them, that means there's no way they're going to buy from you today. Or someone's looking at you a little bit cross-eyed and you say, oh, they're not friendly, I'm not even going to go talk to them. That's head trash. And we've got to get that out of our heads 100%, because we need to have that positive attitude at all times being in sales. But you also need to know that you're not going to turn every prospect into a customer, as we said, today. And that's okay. But if they are a viable prospect, then your job is to stay in touch with them, provide them with information in a non-salesy way in the future, so that when they are ready, when their problem is sizable enough and they're ready to solve it, that they think of you. The other thing that we all need to do in sales is to separate our identity from our role. By that I mean, our identity is who we are as a person. We're a father, we're a parent, we're a husband, a wife, a friend. That's our identity as a person. But our role is today, we have many roles, but our role today that we're talking about is our role as a salesperson. And so you may have not a great day as a salesperson. You make 20 phone calls and no one picks up the phone. A hot prospect that you thought was going to order says he's not quite ready yet. So whatever it may be. So today, if you graded yourself 1 to 10, you might only be a 5 in your role as a salesperson. But that doesn't mean that your identity as who you are, you're not always a 10. And it's important when you go home that day to put that salesperson 5 aside, and with a resolution to do better tomorrow, but always keep that positive attitude regarding your identity. Let's talk a little bit about who your customer is, because this is really important. You have to define your target customer very well. I often will meet with one of my SCORE clients, a new SCORE client who's starting a new business, and I'll ask them, who is your target customer? Who do you think is the person who's going to buy your product or your service? And sometimes they'll say everyone, anyone. What I do is valuable and usable to anyone in the world. Well, that may be, theoretically, that may be true, but we can't market to everyone. That's just not possible. It doesn't make sense, and it's too hard. So we need to narrow down who our target market is. And we can do that in a number of ways. We can use geography. I only want to work with people who live in Massachusetts, Connecticut, or Rhode Island. Or my product is really best suited for women between the ages of 45 and 65. Or, I want to sell to IT managers in pharmaceutical companies who are headquartered in the New England area. Whatever it may be, it's really important to narrow down your target market so that the goal is to find this niche so you can become a big fish in a little pond. It's much more valuable, useful. You can market yourself much easier. You become recognized as an expert in a smaller area. I'll give you an example. I had a SCORE client who was a massage therapist in the Metro West Boston area. And she was excellent. She did her job very well. She had a lot of successful clients, but she didn't have enough clients. And there were a lot of massage therapists in her region. So she became certified as an oncology massage therapist. She took several courses and programs, and she specialized, and she made her pond much smaller. And she started to work with cancer patients who benefited by her massage. She connected with physicians' practices and hospitals, et cetera, and she became extremely successful. And she became known in the Metro West or the Eastern Massachusetts area as the massage therapist for oncology people who are suffering from cancer of some sorts. So this is what I mean. She became an expert in what she did, and she narrowed down her pond and became much more successful than she had. The other thing we all need to remember in the selling process is it's not about you. And it's not about all the wonderful features that your product or your service has. This is you need to think about what you do from 180 degrees from that in terms of your clients and your prospects. What problems do you solve? I've said that before. I'm going to say it again. But, and how do you solve your customers' problems? What are the problems, and how do you solve them? That's your unique selling proposition. So start thinking about benefits, not features. And so in your elevator pitch, it's not all the great features that you offer. It's I help I help cancer patients who have serious pains, and I can help relieve their pain with massage. It's important that you just separate your values and distinguish your products from you in your marketplace. Answer the question, why should your customer buy from you? And you want to be focusing all your messaging, your elevator pitch, your website, any branding that you do, any content, anything that you may write, a webinar or a blog, etc. All about knowing what the problems are that you can solve from your customers and how they benefit. And in order to do that, you've got to uncover what your prospects' true pain is. Pain, and here I don't mean physical pain. I mean, what are their business problems that you can have them solve. You got to do that by asking questions, because they're not going to tell you. They're not going to, and only by asking, showing empathy, asking some probing questions, not intrusive questions, but probing questions that show you're interested in their problem. That's what you're going to, you will finally ultimately get an emotional response from your prospect. And now you know that you've uncovered what the real problem is. So I'll give you an example. Your company sells human resource benefits to small business owners, and you're in a networking event. Finally, you're back at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and you're shaking hands with people face to face, and you meet a small business owner and who says that she thinks she needs to add some benefits for her employees. Well, the typical salesperson will jump up and down, at least mentally, and say, I do that, and start to rattle off all the features and all the benefits that they sell. And I'm saying, no, don't do that, because you don't know what her problem is yet. You know, and she hasn't told you, but you need to ask and use some of these pain questions. This is called the pain funnel, and these are pain funnel questions. And if you ask some of these questions about, what have what problem you may uncover after asking some of these questions, especially that question is, how do you feel about that, or how important is it that you solve this problem, is that she's been losing some of her key managers, her key employees, because her competition offers better HR benefits, better benefits than she is at the moment. And she's afraid if she loses another key manager and can't replace them, that she may go out of business. Now, I use the word afraid. And when you hear that, that's a FUDWACA word: fear, uncertainty, doubt, worry, anger, concern, anxiety. When you hear words like that from your prospect, now you know that you've uncovered what their emotional problem is. And now you can say, oh, I worked with a similar client in a similar industry, and let me tell you what we did and how we helped that company. Now you've established your credibility, you've understood her problem, you've shown empathy, and you're in a much better position to sell your products and services than you were before you asked any of these questions. I want to talk a little bit about price, because people think that if their price is lower than their competition, that they're going to sell more. And I'm going to say baloney. You don't have to be the low price vendor, the low price supplier, because low price doesn't necessarily equal best value. We were talking about value, and it's important that you establish the value of your offering. And just by going through those pain funnel questions and showing that you have some empathy, you understand her problems, you've increased the value of what you sell 100% right out of the chute. Because if you've shown that you're have much more value, provide more value than your competition, whether it's in your understanding, your ability, your background, or what you offer, then the price becomes much less important to the decision. And however, when you lose a job or an order or what it may be, it's easy for that person to say, oh, your price was too high. But because you can't prove that, you don't have any defense against that. You don't know if it really was or not, if that was the true reason. Because I'm going to suggest when you hear that your price is too high, I'm going to suggest that you haven't done a good enough job in the selling process, that you haven't shown your value, you haven't asked enough the right questions, and and provided shown the value that you can provide. And in that situation, and this one, it's especially important to know your competition, who they are, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what do they say, what's their selling proposition, and always assume that your competitors are smart and capable, and never criticize them. I told you I was once early on, I was in the commercial printing industry, and I was once up in a situation. I was competing with two other printing companies. I was meeting with the buyer on a job, and I said something smarmy about. He told me who else was bidding on this particular proposal, and I remember saying something smarmy about the other two companies, and I for some reason, I guess I was feeling confident and I thought I could do it anyway. Not only did I not get that order, but I didn't get any orders or do business with that buyer for the next 3 months. And I finally asked him, I work with a good company. I think I'm a pretty good guy. And he told me, you criticize your competition, who I think are pretty sharp folks, and I like them. And just because you said something nasty about it, that doesn't mean that was the right thing to do. Lesson learned. You only do that once. You might want to ask, when you lose a job to your competition, or you lose an opportunity, ask the buyer, ask your customer, what was it? What did they offer? What did they say that made them go with your competition? They'll tell you. Usually they'll tell you if they're open and honest and want to help. But remember, because maybe your customer will buy that product again, or those services again in the future, and you want them to think of you at that time as the solution to their problems going forward. All right. We've said that you are your company's salesperson. You wear a lot of hats, but this is really an important one. And you have to take this opportunity, the selling opportunity, seriously. You can't wing it. It just won't work. And I'm suggesting that you put in your weekly calendar, you set aside time for selling, for prospecting, for responding to inquiries, whatever it may be. Put it in your calendar. Maybe it's every Monday and Thursday from 9 to 11. And don't override it. Don't stick to it, and use that time to follow up with leads, to reach back to past customers and see how they are. Don't sell them, just find out what's going on. We've been going through a pandemic for a couple of years. There are people you haven't heard from that you'd like to connect back with, whatever it may be. Set aside that time and use it for all of your prospecting and your selling opportunities. And also use that time to set your goals and objectives. And your goals want to be what we call SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And if you don't have a goal, you don't have objectives, you don't know, you're winging it for sure. So we'll talk a little bit more about goal setting, and I'll give you what's called the recipe for success and how to achieve those goals towards the end of the webinar. And now, Beverly, pick up the webinar, please, and I'll see you at the end.
Oops. Here we are. Okay. Thank you, Dick. And Dick, you're going to forward the slides for me.
I'm ready.
All right. So the first thing I like to say is one of the most important things, which is successful people do what others aren't willing to do. I'm going to repeat that. Successful people do what others aren't willing to do. And you're going to see examples of that during this webinar. Dick had touched on the fact that you have to define your customer. And a lot of people don't take the time to do that. And it's really important that you do, because it will help you find figure out how to find them, where to find them, and what to say to them. You need to know their problems, not just the problems your product or service solves, but all of their problems. It helps create rapport. It helps them know that you understand them, helps to know that you work with other people in their industry. You want to know what websites they visit. You want to know where they gather their information from. You want to know their hobbies, their interests. Everything is important in helping you get to know them better and be able to better respond and to reach them. A lot of times people get nervous, especially in the beginning, about defining their customer too narrowly. But you can have multiple customer segments. It's just that you're going to approach them differently. So I had a locksmith who was one of my clients. So his bread and butter, the cash flow, was from the students who locked themselves out, the college students, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. That was his cash flow. His real bread and butter were the property managers that had apartment buildings and condos, and there would be a lot of business that would come from them. But you can obviously see you would approach both of those very differently. So you can have multiple segments, but you want to approach them appropriately for each segment. And do not forget about unaddressed segments. I always tell people to think outside the box. Unaddressed segments can be very profitable. When I started doing insurance, everyone said, don't work with engineers. And I said, why? And they said, because they ask too many questions. And my response was, know the answers. And I work with the startup technology companies, which were very small and technically in themselves were not profitable. But that was very short-sighted because technology companies grow. And by the time they came great plum clients for people, I had been working with them for quite some time, doing a great job, and was never replaced. So they were an unaddressed segment, the startups, and they were very profitable. Next slide. Next slide, great. Prospects. It's much easier to find a list quote now than it did when I started. Get a new notebook or open up a new Excel spreadsheet and look through all the contacts in your phone. Look through all your Facebook friends. Look on LinkedIn. Look at your Instagram followers and divide the list into who will buy now, who will buy later, and who can give me referrals. Referrals, referrals, referrals. They're wonderful, and you should ask them for them from everybody. You can ask them from somebody who doesn't buy. Let's say you had somebody who just doesn't have the budget now, but they know you very well, and if they could buy at that moment, they would. They want to help you. You've done a good job for them. They will give you referrals. If there's somebody and the person you presented to really loved you, but the owner of the company, in essence, decided to give it to his brother-in-law, that person will give you referrals. So everyone is kind of an opportunity to give you referrals, but you need to know how to ask for referrals. If you're asking for referrals, one of the best things you can do is to go to your LinkedIn, their LinkedIn page, and see who is one of the best referrals for you. Maybe have an A and a B list. Because when you look at somebody and say, I need referrals, they're going to look at you like a deer in lights, like, I don't know who you want. You need to really clearly define what type of person you're looking to be referred to. And if you have those LinkedIn names, it's called priming the pump. You could say, well, John is CFO at a company. Do you think you could refer me to him? Why? Because he's perfect for you to get to know. Networking at events and conferences. The biggest mistake people make is if they go with 3 people and there's, let's say, a lunch, they sit at that table of 10 with the 3 people that they know. If you think about it, then you meet 7 people. If each of you sat at a separate table, you would meet 27 people. So you don't want to spend time talking to the people you know. They're not going to buy from you. You want to talk to as many other people as you can. And you never know who your best prospect is going to be. I was once rushed to an emergency room. And when I came out of anesthesia, I was so mad at missing a day of work. I did business with the OR nurse. So anybody could be a prospect or know somebody who might need your services. One of the wonderful things is if you can have someone else help fill your pipeline. A lot of times the CFOs would buy from me. They would be my decision maker. I had a woman who was a part-time CFO. She would go to 4 new companies a year and always brought me in to do the benefits. And then the next year she would move on to another company and I would continue doing the benefits for the company. So every year I would get approximately 4 new clients from her. It was wonderful. So you can spend more time doing work for your clients if you have somebody helping you fill your pipeline. Another example is a wedding planner feeding the pipeline of a florist or a caterer. This is a little different than sharing leads, because if you think about the wedding planner fills the pipeline, but the caterer and the florist are selling to the same people. They could share leads. I had somebody who did high-end musical instruments. He partnered with a high-end amp person. So they're selling to the same people. So they were very much able to share leads. And as I always say, think outside the box. I would sell to the startup CEOs. Well, where would startup CEOs gather? And I thought about it. The VC, the venture capitalist Christmas parties. I would do anything to get to a venture capitalist Christmas party. And I was able to get to quite a few. And what I would do is I would go up to the owner of the company and I'd ask him about his business. I'd tell him my elevator pitch, what quickly I did. And I'd ask for a card and say, do you mind if I call you on Monday? Because remember, in social situations, they're there to eat a shrimp and have a drink. They are not there to listen about benefits. And then I would call them on Monday morning and make an appointment. So think outside the box. Next slide. Social media. SCORE has numerous webinars on this subject matter. You should try and attend as many as you can, because things in this area are constantly changing and you're going to get a different gem from each one of these. You're going to hear something a little bit different. Facebook is great for visual products. LinkedIn is great for priming the pumps. Instagram is great for visual products. There's Etsy. There's many different platforms that you can be on. It's great to get noticed by an influencer. It's great to pay an influencer to notice you. There's a lot of different things that you need to do to get involved. You need to stay current on these platforms. You need to update them quite often. There's SEO, very, very important. AdWords, there's all sorts of things that you need to do to be successful on social media. So please attend those seminars. Cold calling and buying lists. Lists help, but you need to know the name of the person that you're reaching. If I went to the marquee of a building and I saw I wanted to contact a company in it, I used to call and say, who's the head of the HR? And I need to address some information to them. They'd give me the name, then I could call back and go through the voicemail system and reach the person. It's very important that you reach the right person, which is more difficult now, but you have to find ways to get the name of the right person to reach that person. Blogging and videos, very helpful. You can be seen as an expert. Same thing in chat rooms. I had a client who was very successful gaining clients by answering questions in a chat room. Join different groups on Facebook, many different ways of being seen as an expert. Email campaigns like Constant Contact. This is where it's really important that you define your customer. If you define your customer very well, and you get 100 names that are in your sweet spot, and you contact them and you get 10 appointments. Or you could not define your customers clearly. You'll get 500 names, but remember, only 100 are in your sweet spot. And you're going to get the same 10 appointments from those 100. So which would you rather do? Get 400 extra no's, waste more time, waste more money, or be contacting the 100 that you should be contacting to get those 10 appointments? Again, think outside the box. I worked with new corporations and I thought, where can I get a list of those? Well, the Secretary of State back in the Stone Age used to produce a list quarterly. I used to get that list. I used to mark off the ones I wanted to talk to. I used to go to a phone booth in a hotel because if you went from a phone booth, they didn't charge you for information, which they did if you called from your house. And I would call them like 400 times and get the names that I needed. Sounds crazy, but I did sell the company successfully at 50, so it did work. But successful people do what others aren't willing to do. Flower baskets. One of my counselors at SCORE, he had somebody who opened a dental practice right near a big office park, and he would deliver flower baskets that had his brochures in it because people want to go to a dentist at lunchtime, or even if they took an hour off from work that was very close. And that's how he grew his practice. So it's always good to kind of think outside the box a little bit. Next slide. When you do a Google search, you know at the top and on the sides, there come up ads. And those are paid per click ads, which means that in the background, there's a blind bidding to see how much you would pay per click. You have to be careful because people can click, but it doesn't convert to a sale. Also on the website are those that come up organically. And again, that involves SEO, search engine optimization, having the proper AdWords. Again, a lot of companies at this point in time are actually hiring people to help them in these areas. But it's important that you get noticed. It's important that you get noticed quickly, high up. This is one area that you may want to spend in if you need to. Next slide. Direct mail. A lot of people think it's archaic, but direct mail can actually work for certain things. If somebody sent me or put in my door a window cleaning service somewhere between January and April, I would keep that card and call them. So direct mail, mattering what it is and your industry, might actually work quite well, especially if you know who you're mailing to. You're mailing to a targeted market. Trade shows. Talk to the attendees, talk to the vendors. When you're at a trade show, do not be sitting in the back of your booth looking at your phone. You want to make sure it's manned properly, that you have the proper signage to attract the people that you want, and you want to be standing up front talking to people. When the attendees are in the conferences or not walking through, talk to the other vendors. Remember, you're selling to the same people. Maybe you can find people to share leads with. And that's what a strategic or complementary partners are, people that you can sell to together. Other things, speaking engagements are wonderful for people who do services, a nutritionist, an HR consultant, a wellness provider. Anyone, give them small tidbits of information, have them trust you. If it's in person, put a card on the seat saying, do you want more information about this, this, and this? Have them put their contact information on the back. So it's a very professional looking card. Guess what? Those are your hot leads. You might get a list of everyone there, but you know to contact these people first because they're already interested. Other things, festivals, open markets, it depends. Good for jewelry, good for different types of food. Slide. Elevator speech. You should know your elevator speech so well. I had a woman come to me and she was going to a networking event and we put together her speech and I said, okay, now do it for me. And she goes, oh, I can't do that. And I said, well, if you can't do it for me, how are you going to do it tonight? So she did it and it was pretty rough. And I had her do it again and it was pretty rough, but it was getting better. And we did it another time. And then I dropped a pencil on the ground. I said, okay, now do it while picking up the pencil. That's how well you should know it. It should be in your soul. Mine was, I do insurance planning and benefits planning for the high tech and biotech industry. I love working with the founders of startup. So in 2 minutes, probably less than even a minute, you knew exactly what I do, because it's not important what I want to be talking about. I want to hear what they are going to be talking about. You need to ask those probing questions that Dick has talked about, the pain points. How is your current vendor? What do you like about them? What don't you like about them? What problems have you had in whatever area you're selling? So what problems have you had? How did they resolve it? Could it happen again? And if they don't know any problems, then you, because you know them so well, can start mentioning some problems. Has this ever happened to you? Has this ever happened to you? Now they know you really know what you're talking about, and they're a little disturbed by potential problems that maybe their vendor never mentioned. Then your job is to really listen. That's the most important thing, and develop the solutions in your mind. Listen to how you can solve their problem. It's not about you, it's about them. How are you going to help them? It's also important that as you're leaving, to one, ask for the order or the follow-up opportunity. I once stood up, put on my coat, and the guy looked at me and he goes, "Don't we need to sign some paperwork?" Oh, I don't know what was going on that day, but I took off my coat, did the paperwork, and was very embarrassed. But you always want to get a time for the next meeting. That's important, because even if you have to create a proposal, then put it off for 2 or 3 weeks, but set the date. Set the date and then say, I'll confirm with you at the beginning of the week to make sure it's still a good time and date for us. It's horrible to spend all your time trying to chase someone for the next meeting. At least this way, even if they have to change the date, you've got them on the line to make the next follow-up date. So try not to leave a meeting without a follow-up date. Next slide. Telephone calling, it works, but it does take time. If you get 1 or 2 no's, that does not mean it's not a good list. Does not mean you're not saying the right things. 200, 300, then you know that you might need to adjust something, but give it time. And you have to be positive and have a solid message. You know, in the winter when it gets dark at 4:30, I had windows in front of me which act like mirrors because it's dark outside. And I looked up one day and I realized I'm cold calling and I'm smiling. People can hear a smile. And somebody said to me, "How can you be smiling when you're making cold calls?" To me, it was an opportunity to make money. This is how I get business. This is a good thing. If you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, I got to make these 10 calls before I leave," you might as well leave, because it's going to come through. So you have to be positive, have a good message, know what you're going to say, and use a script, but do not sound canned. You need to think about inflection. You need to think about pace. You need to think about tone. Each one of these calls has to sound like the only call you made that day and that you want that client. I always got my first call usually result in an appointment. Why? Because I was fresh. I was happy. I was ready to make that call, and it was my first call, and it sounded great. And a lot of times people have asked during, the question and answer afterwards, do you send an email? Yes, you can send an email, then a call, then another email if you didn't reach them, then another call. You can even send them an appointment and see if they accept it. I've had people do that. And remember, the best time to call is not always the best time for you. I used to call 7 o'clock on Monday mornings. Why? Because that's when I could reach the owner of the company before his secretary got in. I would call in the summertime at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Why? Because the only one working was me and the owner of the company, and he knew how dedicated I was by the call. So again, successful people do what others aren't always willing to do. Remember, your goal is to get a meeting when you're on the phone. It is not to sell them. What you want to do is ask questions, build rapport, build empathy, listen to them, care about them. The longer you keep them on the phone, the better. Remember, you know their problems. Talk to them about other things going on in their industry. Build some rapport with them. Educate, do not sell. It's better to start the sentence with, did you know? Rather than, well, but no, that doesn't work. Did you know? And if you ask for the meeting and they say no, press them a little bit. Don't wait for 10 no's and all that crazy thing people say. Find out why it's no. Could it be that they're waiting for VC money and they can't buy anything until they have that money? Could it be that they're moving their offices in a month and they are doing nothing new until they move those offices? Is it that the HR person just heard about a calamity between two people on the second floor and that's her main focus at that point in time? You don't know what's going on in somebody else's world. So if they say no, you follow up with, well, is there a given time you review this product or service, whatever you're selling? Is there a better time for me to get back to you? Is there a slow time of the year? When is your renewal of this? How often do you renew this, review this? Questions like that to find out when is a better time to call back. And be organized. Have a client management software system. You want to get back to these people when they told you to. Next slide. Establishing rapport. I worked a lot with graduates from MIT. MIT has a ring. It's called a brass rat. It's a college ring. I don't know if that's really the name of it, but that's the nickname for it. When I used to walk into a meeting and somebody had a brass rat on their finger, I knew I had a new client. I knew how to talk to them. I knew how to make them feel that they wanted to do business with me. It's easy to see if you've created rapport. There's a couple of tricks. For example, you can use body language. Lean forward. Don't be sitting back in your chair. Be alert. Pay attention to them. Also, if you want to see if you create rapport, touch their face. Touch your face. If they touch their face, unconsciously, you've created rapport. Or put your hands on the desk in front of you. If they mirror what you're doing, you've created rapport. And it's the art of listening. You should know your product and kind of your answers so well that you can focus on what they're saying. Ask, don't tell. I always said, I don't sell, they buy. They will tell you what you need to know so that you can actually do business with them. They say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in that ratio. I always go by the 80-20 rule. They should be talking 80% of the time. The entire first part of the meeting should be them telling you all your problems and you figuring out the solutions that you can do to help them. Because remember, if they don't have a problem, you don't have a sale. And this is one of my favorite lines. I'm going to repeat it twice because you want to know if you're in competition. It says, though most people only meet with me, have you talked with anyone else? I'm going to repeat that. Though most people only meet with me, have you talked with anybody else? Because you do want to know their competition, but you don't want to excite them to actually go look for your competition. So that's always been a really good line to do that. Next slide. The decision maker. You always want to present to the decision maker. You don't want somebody else doing your job. You know your product inside and out. You talk to somebody for an hour, and then 5 days later, they're talking to somebody else. They're going to remember maybe 30% of what you said. They're not going to be able to answer the questions that that person asked, maybe because 1, they don't remember, or 2, they never asked the question. Even more importantly, the pain points of the person you spoke to may not be the pain points of the person who's actually the decision maker. So I'm talking to an engineer and he's like this, will save me so much time. This will make my job easier. Great. The CFO is going to look and say, well, this is $200,000. How is this going to be better for the company? It's going to save him, but I'm already paying him and that's his job. See, so you have to think about it. And it's you don't want to go over the person. You want to encourage the person to bring you to the other person. One of the harder things to do is ask about the budget. How much is this going to cost? But an easy way to say is, what is your current spend? Do you have a budget for this? Because you want your presentation to gear itself to that. Maybe you have to do it as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or have a base plan with add-ons. So it really is important to know the budget. When will they be ready to make a decision? This is one of the most important questions you can ask them. What needs to occur for us to move forward? I'm going to repeat that. What needs to occur for us to move forward? Now, that may indicate that there's other decision makers you didn't know about. They might say, well, I have to bring this to top management. So now you know to ask who those people are and to get in front of them. It might be that they are waiting for, again, the VC money, the sale, the move to occur, their vendor contract to run out. You want to know what is preventing this from moving forward so you can time it right, you can address it. Many different things can come up from that one line. It's very important to create a pipeline of prospects. You can never have too many prospects. I used to have people from like November through Christmas say, oh, let's talk after the first of the year. It's a great excuse. So I'd have a whole list of people in January. I'd be so nervous. I'd have so many people. I wouldn't even have time to sleep. I manage to sleep every January. So it's very good to have as many prospects as possible. And the best thing to do is make the sale. Dick, I think it's back to you.
Thank you, Beverly. Let's see if I can back live here. Hi. We're going to conclude the webinar with a little discussion about goal setting and accountability, because you need to be able to track your progress to your goals. So first step is to define a goal. Your goal could be related to income, how much you want to earn in a year or in a period of time. Your sales, you want your sales revenue to be X dollars. Perhaps it's a number of clients. You want to have 20 clients in a certain period of time. Whatever is relevant and makes sense to your business can be, your goal can be based around that. But how are we going to get there? So I'm calling this, what's your recipe for success? How many calls, what are the behaviors that you need to do to reach that goal? So how many calls or meetings or proposals do you need to make? These behaviors could be anything like making phone calls or following up with leads, or any networking events that you may go to and meet prospects there, or any targeted direct mail you may do, any inbound inquiries that you follow up. Those are all behaviors that need to happen, that you need to do in order to get to that goal. And let me be more specific, show you how this works. So let's say, so I've made these numbers easy for math purposes. So let's say your goal is you want to add 12 new clients next year. Well, that means you want to have 1 new client every month. And at least these are averages, obviously. And you know, just based on your history and your experience, that if you have 4 meetings with solid prospects, one of those meetings is going to turn that prospect into a client. And you've got to start somewhere with this recipe. And making assumptions. So starting there, and you can maybe as time goes on, it's not 4 meetings, maybe it's 3 meetings, maybe it's 5 meetings, whatever it is, but you've got to start somewhere to determine this recipe, and it can be adjusted. So we're assuming that after 4 meetings, you're going to get 1 new client. So therefore, you need to have one prospect meeting, one of these meetings every week. Again, we're talking about averages. You could skip a week and have two the following week, but on average, you need to have one prospect meeting every week to get one new client every month. You also know, and again, this is a fact that may change, that for about every 25 one-on-one connections, whatever that means, a phone call, a Zoom meeting, a good networking conversation. For every 25 of those that you have with prospects, you get one meeting. So that's your goal, because if you make those 25 connections every week, you're going to get that one meeting every week. And out of those, that weekly meeting, one of those meetings is going to turn into a new client in that month. So it's those 25 connections, and how you do it is up to you and what works for you. But it's making those 25 connections. And if you do that, just according to your past history and what you think works for you, you make those 25 connections and meet 25 new people, have 25 conversations, you're going to reach your goal of 12 new clients every month. So hold yourself accountable, work with a score counselor to do that. That's one of our goals in working with our clients, is to set up this recipe for success and hold them accountable. And now we're happy to answer any questions, and happy to, if you put your name in the chat, we'll make a note of it and make an appointment for you and set you up with a score counselor.
Okay, great, Dick. We do have a question posted in the Q&A, and I would like to encourage you at this time to please get your questions posted in Q&A or in the chat. If you would like to ask your question out loud, I'd be happy to accommodate that as well. You can use the raise hand icon on your Zoom bar, and I will unmute you so that you may ask your question out loud. So here's the first question. How to make yourself known to local prospects who are not using the internet, individuals, not businesses.
One of the things you can do is go to networking events, Chamber of Commerce events. I saw this as Miriam. You can go to women's events, places where you're face to face with people. If you belong to a church or a synagogue, getting involved with those groups. A lot of them also send out brochures on a monthly or quarterly basis where you can put your information in the back. I saw you're a tax advisor, so you could give an educational seminar, give them a few tidbits of information and be trusted as an expert. You can give those seminars at libraries. You can give them at 55 plus associations. There's many different ways that you can do it. But if you're not doing internet, then it would be a lot more face-to-face. I don't think in your industry, a direct mailing would build a lot of confidence with people. I think people need to know that you know your stuff. And I think by talking to you, you're going to get much more rapport with people, much more trust with people. Do you have any comments?
Good suggestions, Beverly. Also offering, you know, where do your prospects hang out? Where do they go? What kinds of activities do they physically attend face to face? You know, offering like chambers of commerce or you know, your church organizations, that they're always looking for speakers. So become a presenter. Even your library, your library offers opportunities to speak and to present. So develop a half an hour presentation with some subject with the topic that's compelling, and learn to be a great presenter. So you're sort of replacing the webinar or a blog with a personal presentation.
Great, thank you. I do not have any more questions posted. I'm going to give everyone a few moments. If you can't type that fast, to use that raise hand icon on the Zoom bar, and we can allow you to get your question answered. We have definitely got 2 experts on sales, and if you've got a question, please get that posted. And I guess at this time, I'm gonna go ahead also and wrap it up. I'm going to post the link again real quick to where you can find the recording for today. It should be recorded or posted either later today, first thing tomorrow. That's where you can find the recording. Okay, question. Any advice on selling to an enterprise or landing a partnership opportunity with a larger organization?
You got to find the right person. You got to, be really specific and find out who the decision maker is in the organization that you're talking about. And hone in on them. I'd suggest, and I'd be happy to work with you on this, but after you find that right person, I'd suggest writing them a letter. Outlining first briefly what you do, ask them suggesting some of the problems that they may be facing. I've done this very successfully with a number of clients in writing a targeted direct mail letter, because people open their personal mail. That's my first thought off the top of my head. Beverly, will you have something else?
No, I think that's great advice.
Because they certainly may not answer an email that you send them. They certainly may not return a phone call or a voicemail that you leave. But I'd attract their attention with a targeted direct mail letter it's very pointed.
I would probably also try the approach just in addition to that of the email, the call, and then send an appointment option and see if they bite. Trying as many different ways as you can.
Another thought is using LinkedIn and finding out who they're connected to and who may be connected to them, and try and get an introduction from someone directly to them. But wording that connection for your contact is very important. You have to do that properly. But in other words, getting referred in directly to that person in some fashion, and LinkedIn often can help you there.
Okay, next question. How do you overcome your own reluctance to approach strangers?
Practice.
Every stranger is your friend.
Right.
That's how you have to look at it. I mean, think about it. Every person is your best opportunity. I had a woman at one of those VC parties, just to let you know what you have to overcome. The owner of the company said she handles that. I went up to she was so nasty to me. I stared at her card maybe for 15 minutes before giving the call. Not only did I do business with the company, I was invited to her 50-person wedding. So you have no idea. You just have to think that this person may be interested, may not, but they're not going to treat you badly. A stranger is not a bad person. It's an opportunity. Dick?
You got to practice. You may want to start with some non-business occasion where there's a group of people. You're in a group of people. Maybe it's a wedding. I don't know, whatever it may be, or a service at your church, and bump into someone and say, "Oh, excuse me, introduce yourself." Whatever it is, but practice, and then from there, maybe go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Just you can attend them as a guest at no charge for a while, and because the purpose, everyone there is in the same boat as you would be. Everyone is trying to meet everyone else. Everyone knows that that they're there for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and to meet who else is there. So it's pretty a low key, low risk kind of environment.
Another thing you can do is also look at the person and see if there's something you can compliment them on or if you've just heard a speaker, something you can compliment the speaker on. What it does is it lowers the defenses of the person you're talking to. If it's a woman and you say, wow, that's a beautiful scarf. I've always loved scarves. Now you're going to start a conversation rather than go up to and say, hi, my name is so-and-so. What do you do? So if you can kind of get them off guard and get them friendly, that may help you a little bit.
Excellent. Yep, I love that advice. Okay, I don't have any more questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Definitely check out that link that I provided for the recording. You can, and if you decide later that you want to get a SCORE mentor, you can email me, and I will make sure the right chapter reaches out to you. I just threw that in the chat, or you can go to the SCORE website and they will connect you to the right chapter. Either way, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and Dick and Beverly for sharing their experience and knowledge, and everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.